Okay, so I was rushing to try and get everything into a single 15-minute video. This software only gives me 15 minutes per video. Not a good idea because then you make mistakes. So here is a very short second video. Let me go back to where I was. Okay, so I had gotten to the end. Let me tidy this up here. Bear with me. That 3 needs to go, that 5 needs to go, that 6, 7, 4. Okay, so when I was going through, everything was okay in terms of where we were, except the one thing I forgot to do was highlight the 45 here because that's a single. It is greater than that, but it is also a single value, so it's sorted. So let me go through this again one more time. I am so sorry. You'll be great at this by the time I'm finished. So let's just go back to the beginning. It's not a bad idea to have to listen to it a few times, I suppose. Let me tidy this up and we'll go again. And I know I have time, so I can take my time. So we are going to start at the beginning of the algorithm, and we know that in this sample, we are going to take the last value in my unsorted list to be my pivot value. When we put it in as a pivot value, it becomes a single value, and that it means that it's actually sorted. Then what's happened with the unsorted list is all the values less than the pivot value are stored in one list, and we can see that here on the left hand side. And all of the values greater than or equal to the pivot value are stored in this list on the right hand side. Now obviously we'll look at code on Monday for how we're going to do this, but for now it's suffice to say we take our pivot and this comes out into here, the pivot. This comes out into here. And then really what we're saying is that the rest of that list is split into less than or greater than or equal to across based on the pivot. So the rest of what's left in that list is split over two lists like that. And then what we have to do is recursively repeat the algorithm on the sublist. Don't worry about that word recursively. We're just repeatedly doing it over and over and over again. And recursion will be done with you at a later stage, and I'll talk a little bit more about it. It makes a little bit more sense when we see the code. So basically we're doing the same thing over and over again. We are taking, for any list we have, the last value becomes our pivot value. That gets pulled out and it's deemed sorted. Then from the rest of the list, we have our values that are less than the pivot value, our values that are greater than the pivot value. This becomes our pivot, and what's left in the list is split over these two. What I didn't do the last time was just note that because this is a single value, it is actually also now sorted. I just missed that because I was rushing to try and get it done in the 15 minutes. So I'm going to keep going down this side and we're going to do exactly the same thing. We are going to take the last number in our list. That is going to become our pivot value here. And what's left, which is only 24, gets split into our list, which is greater than, but also that is now sorted. We always do the left-hand side first, and then we do the right-hand side, and then we put it together from the left-hand side as well, which you'll see now in a second. So let's go again. We take our, on this side, 96 becomes, we do it down here, 96 becomes our pivot value. So 96 is out here. Our less than values are here, and we don't have any greater than values, so we don't have to worry about that. This is now sorted, and this is the next list that has to be recursively acted on in the same way. So in other words, we now take 63. This becomes our pivot value, and 85 is actually greater than, so it goes on the greater than side, but because it's a single value, it's deemed now sorted too. So we can see that we've taken this to here, this goes over here. In this one, these are going here, that's going there. Okay, so we have our breakdown, our tree structure now, and now we have to put it all back together. So the way we put it back together is that we start at the bottom of the tree on the left hand side with the smallest number. So this is our first one, moving across our second, then we move up through the tree, staying to the left for the smallest all of the time, third, fourth, fifth. Then we come back down to the bottom of the tree. This becomes the sixth, seventh, and eighth values. So when I put that back together in my list, I have 17, 24, 31, 45, 50, 63, 85, 96. And we put our list back together like that. Now, hopefully that is okay. I know this is a second video and I'm sorry that I had to go over. But maybe that'll give you a little bit of something to having gone through it a third time, maybe it'll be a little bit clearer. The tricky thing really is not so much the pivot and the less than and greater than. You're going to get that really easily, and you have to keep doing it down until you have single values everywhere. It's building it back up and knowing where to start. So it's always from the left and it's always from the smallest to the highest. It's done differently if we have to do it in ascending or descending order from highest to lowest, but in which case the algorithm has to be tweaked for that. But let's do one step at a time. Let's get it in ascending order. So it always starts on the left hand tree. It always starts at the bottom to the far left, and you're moving across through the values then for the single values, and then up far left, moving in, up, far left. When there's nothing left, you're down the bottom of the right hand tree, starting at the far left again, and going across that, coming up, starting at the far left, but there's only unsorted values here, and until you have everything in a list. And we will look at the code for this the next day, which hopefully will help. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to just give you a very short piece of work to practice this if you have time in class. Okay, so just a bit of work on that. So now that I've explained it, let's see if you can implement it a little bit, okay, without the code, without anything like that. These are taken from exam papers, and this is part of one question in question 10, and it's asking you to use the leftmost element as the pivot, show the contents of the list after the initial partition by the quicksort algorithm. You should assume that the elements in the left and right sublist are not reordered. So, that very first partition, like I did at the very beginning there, like if we did a partition and we put those lists back together, what that would look like. And then have a think about this. Explain why 90 would have been a poor choice of pivot for this partition, and give an answer. So obviously this is on a video, but you can take down those questions and answer them for me for Monday. And then that's one. So you can pause the video and work through them. And then the next one is again about the quick sort, but it's saying given the unsorted list shown below and a pivot of 13, state the contents of the two sublists created after one partitioning step of quicksort. So you're asked for the list here. And then you're asked to describe the next steps quicksort would take in order to achieve its objective. I would be expecting that they think it's going to be English there, okay? But I think what you should do is finish out that quicksort algorithm like I've shown you in the diagrams, and then take that solution and try and put English on it. So what are the next steps that you've actually done? You can use the language I've used in the videos about recursively repeating the steps and so on. And then on Monday, what we'll do is we'll go through the code for this and hopefully it'll be okay. Obviously, if you're watching these videos and you have any questions or you're unsure about anything, I know the end of the last video was a disaster. I'm not redoing it in terms of I was trying to get it in the 15 minutes and ran out of time. So now you've got a second, nearly 10-minute video on it. But yeah, if you have questions or you want to clarify anything, just send me an email and I will come back to you. And I hope you have a lovely weekend and I will see you on Monday.